Hey, I'm Josh from Vacuums R Us in Colorado, and today we're going to be doing a circuit board replacement on it's actually a Windsor sensor. So this video is going to be applicable to the Sebo X4 series, the Windsor sensors, and the new Karcher machines as well. So the customer brought the machine in because the full bag light is staying on. That was their reported symptom. This specific machine we're working on is actually a private label called ProChem, and these were private label made by Karcher, and then the ProChem name was put on it. But you know, many people will recognize this machine is made in many different formats, and this video is going to be applicable to all of them. So typically a full bag, or it'd be a full bag or clog, it'll say. That most commonly is because the bag is full. That's the point. The bag is full, airflow is reduced, and so that turns on. Alternatively, sometimes your internal filter, this one right here, if you've put a bag in incorrectly and you filled this full of dirt, there's so much loss of airflow that it will give you that full sensor. And very commonly, the machine is clogged. You managed to clog it somewhere. The clog is in the hose, it's in the wand, maybe it's in the base, and that's the issue. So be sure to check thoroughly for clogs before you do some crazy things like replacing the circuit board. I'm going to link to the parts that I'm using below in the description, as well as the full schematic breakdown that shows all of the parts for this machine and where they reside within the machine. It's a good reference. The reason we replaced the circuit board, so there is a function to reset the sensors on Karcher, Windsor, Sebo machines. We're at 5,000 feet here in Colorado, and these sensors are set for sea level. So we can have some sensitivity issues with those sensors overall in our area, and sometimes we do need to recalibrate them. But what we found with machines of this era is that even though the sensor can theoretically be reset, every time we have tried to reset the sensor and recalibrate the sensor, it simply doesn't work. The PCBs are just bad. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to get this repair done. But first, a disclaimer. All right, before we start this repair, disclaimer time. This video is for informational purposes only. These repairs should only be done by factory authorized technicians in vacuum stores. If something goes wrong here, I am not responsible for any issues that might arise. If the vacuum becomes sentient and eats your cat, not our problem. Seriously though, watch the entire video. A lot of these repairs are very difficult. Make sure you're confident in performing this repair before you start, because the last thing in the world you want to do is take this machine apart and then bring it into a repair shop because you couldn't complete the repair. Many repair shops, like ours, will not accept machines once they've been messed around with. So make sure you can do this before you start, because you're in it to win it. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the upper housing from the lower housing and just get it out of the way. There's going to be a button on the front. That's the case with Sebos as well. It's a round button with Sebos. If you press the button, you can wiggle the entire top housing off. Sometimes they're stuck, and you may want to put the machine on the floor and then apply pressure, kind of put your foot on the head and then pull the top up if they're really stuck. So we can get that out of the way. First thing we're going to do is we're going to pop the head. Interestingly, this is a private label machine by ProChem. It was made by Karcher, but it was private labeled, but it's a Windsor sensor. So we got two screws here. We got one up here, and we got one over here, total of 4. So we can flip this over now. All right, so now we got the lid off. We're able to see the two circuit boards in question. This is the power supply, and this is the sensor board that we're going to be replacing. I will link to these parts in the description. This is the new sensor board. You can see they look quite a bit different, but everything lines up right there. So here's our new power supply. Looks very different from our previous power supply, but everything will plug in properly to this where it needs to go. Okay, so these will come with printed instructions in them as well, for what it's worth. They actually have the old version, new version instructions in here, helpfully in German as well as English. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to replace the power supply first. Not always a good idea to take a picture of this. You can also just come back to the video. These power clips here do have retainer clips on them. So I'm going to use a little pick to depress the retainer clip and pull them up. So you'll see there's a retainer clip right there that you need to push when you're disconnecting them to avoid doing any damage. So it's worth noting, if you're doing a changeover on a Sebo, Sebos do not have ground plugs because they're not commercial. So you may be missing these green ground wires. That's perfectly fine. The grounding on the power supply is right here. You're simply not going to use it. But on Karcher and Windsor, they're commercial machines, so you'll find that they are grounded. So we've got these two other ones that are going to come out here. I'm going to use needle nose to extract that. You don't want to rip the cords out because they can come out of the connector. But these are just pressure fit in here. There we go. And then these are separate. These are singular connectors. And this is the power to the main blower motor. All right, so now that we have our wires out, there's only 3 screws. Oh, there's a ribbon cable. I forgot about that. So we do have 1 ribbon cable right here. I'm going to disconnect the ribbon cable from the sensor PCB. That'll just pop straight up. There's no retainer clips on that. So there's 3 screws on the power supply. Totally different size screws than the other ones, so we don't have to worry about mixing them up. All right, so the old power supply is out of the way. We will go ahead and put in the new power supply. I'll screw that down. Turn the clutch on my screw gun down so I don't break anything. Tighten that one down, and we'll tighten in the back. And we have 1 screw in the middle. All right. So this is 2 combined plugs that go together right there. Then we have our ground cable. Comes around back into here. Actually, I'm going to plug in the motor power cables first. And on these, it doesn't matter which goes into which. They're not marked, they're not color-coded. All right, so I'm going to plug in the ground cable that goes to the motor, and I'm going to plug in the ground cable that goes way back over there. Who knows where it goes? We'll find out in a second. All right, and that leaves us 1 remaining ribbon cable, which I'll feed it through right here, but I'm going to leave it unconnected because we are replacing this board next. And I'm going to wait to run these wires through the wire guide there because we're going to be messing around with this little PCB. So you need to be careful. The whole thing with the Windsor sensor and the X4s that automatically adjust and all, and have the gears that shut off if you run something over. There's a little sensor piece right here on the main PCB. Just be careful not to break that. And I've got another ribbon cable right here, which I'm going to pop up. I've only got 2 screws on this. And again, these are completely different screws than the other ones, so they will not get mixed up. These are pretty narrow, and they're actually a pointed screw. So we have that. This right here is the it's supposed to be the adjustment for airflow sensors. So you're supposed to be able to adjust this back and forth, and then this whole issue that we're facing will go away. It's simply been that on machines of this era, we found that this just doesn't work. It's just not fixing the issue, and so we just by default go ahead and replace that PCB. All right, so this is the little sensor piece I was talking about. You need to be careful, and that's going to drop down in that groove right there. And so there's raised mounts right here where the PCB drops down. The screw holes in the PCB will drop into that, and that will hold it in place. All right, and I'm going to put these screws in by hand because we're working with a PCB and I don't want the screw gun to over torque. I'm going to turn this by hand to verify that I'm not rubbing the sensor against that wheel or anything. It all looks good. And I'm going to reconnect the 2 ribbon cables. All right, and now I'm going to rerun these cables through the cable guides. Got plenty of play over here. Plenty of play back and forth there. Okay, and now we can go ahead. Oh, and helpfully, I forgot to mention that. So this is actually it's a cap, and there's instructions in there about how to use this cap to calibrate your airflow. And this goes over the hose, and They're complicated instructions. If you do need to recalibrate, if you turn this back on and you're still getting that airflow, your bag is full sensor, you may need to recalibrate. And this goes over the hose, and you turn it on and off, and you turn the thingy, and then all the instructions are there. All right, and now that we're done, we're going to put the lid back on. So I typically will set these in the front first. The back will be lifted, and I'll set it down like this. So go in there, and then, well, it looks like it dropped flat down on this one. We didn't go front to back, it just dropped straight down. All right, flip it over. And then we have 4 screws going back in again. All right, now we just pop this back on front. This is going to slide up into the body. There's a little thing there. You put it on just right. You shouldn't need to jam it on. Just wiggle it around until it drops in on its own. And you'll hear the clip where this engages. And then we'll do a test real quick and verify that that resolved our issue. So we see that the sensor is bringing the unit up because we're in the upright position. So the sensor appears to be working. Our full bag indicator is not on. I'm going to lean the machine back and verify that the sensor is going down now. So our sensor is working properly. And no bag fault. So successful repair on that baby. Hopefully this was helpful. I don't know, do all the things they do on social, like and follow, I guess, if you want to follow a vacuum cleaner channel. Not very exciting, but we got a lot of followers, so clearly there's some vacuum cleaner aficionados out there.